All right, so we're back and ready to dive deep into something I think is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And that is the Draymond Green and Karl-Anthony Towns sort of rivalry that seems to be brewing.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, right? Because there's the on-court stuff, and they've definitely had some run-ins
Right.
over the years. But this is something that's really kind of gone beyond basketball.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so we've got a bunch of articles, we've got some game recaps, some podcast transcripts, and we're gonna kind of try to unpack all this and figure out how did we get here, and like where is this all going?
Yeah, like what are the implications for these two teams moving forward?
Right, exactly.
I mean, it's fascinating how it's gone beyond just the two players, and now it's like impacting their teams potentially.
Yeah, and even personal lives and other people getting pulled into it.
Yeah.
So it's a little messy.
Yeah, it's a little messy.
But that makes it fun for us.
Oh, absolutely.
So why don't we start with maybe just set the stage a little bit for people, like what happened in this most recent game.
Right. So the Warriors and Knicks played on March 15th, just a few days ago.
Right.
And it was a close one.
It was a close one.
The Warriors ended up winning 97-94.
97-94.
But it really came down to the wire.
Yeah.
And of course, who else but Draymond Green hits the game-winning layup.
Of course.
With like 25 seconds left, and it was right over Karl-Anthony Towns.
It's funny you say, of course, Draymond, because he's kind of known for those big moments.
Absolutely, yeah. He's a clutch player.
But, I mean, you couldn't write a better script, could you?
No, not for this rivalry. I mean, like, given everything that's happened, it's almost like symbolic,
Yeah, like it was destined.
Yeah, exactly.
So, that sort of brings us to like, why is this a big deal? Why are we talking about this?
Right.
Right. And it kind of goes back to, Draymond's podcast.
Oh, yeah.
So earlier in March.
Earlier this month, yeah.
He made some comments on his podcast, and I guess he was talking about
Towns. Yeah, and, kind of implying that
Towns had sat out a game on purpose to avoid playing against Jimmy Butler.
Right. Like, he didn't want to face him.
Yeah, and I guess there's some history there.
There is some history there, yeah, with those two.
But it turned out that wasn't really the case, right?
Yeah. So, Towns was actually absent for a very different reason.
Yeah.
He was supporting his girlfriend, Jordan Woods, who was grieving the loss of a friend to breast cancer.
Yeah, and it's kind of a sad situation because, Draymond obviously didn't know that.
Right.
And he's out there, speculating and making these comments, and it's like well-intentioned, I guess.
I think it was just, a miscalculation.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely caused a lot of unnecessary drama.
Yeah. He did apologize later, once he found out the truth.
Yeah. He did. He apologized and offered his condolences.
And Towns, I think, accepted the apology.
Yeah, publicly at least.
Right. But I mean, this is the thing, right? Like, these are grown men.
Yeah.
They're professionals. But sometimes it feels like we're back in high school.
I know, right? It's like all this drama and pettiness.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because, it starts on a podcast.
Yeah.
Which is like this relatively new media platform.
It's a whole new world.
Right. And it just shows you like the power that these players have.
Oh, yeah.
They can just hop on a mic.
And the whole world is listening.
Yeah. And say whatever they want.
Yeah.
And it can just create these huge ripples.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, I guess the question is like, is that apology enough?
Yeah.
To kind of smooth things over, or is there still this underlying tension?
Right. I mean, public apologies don't always erase those private feelings.
Right.
And, from everything we've seen, this rivalry, it seems like it runs pretty deep.
And then you have that game, right, that we were just talking about.
Yeah, the March 15th game.
The March 15th game where it's like, I don't want to say they were trying to hurt each other, but
they were definitely playing with an edge.
Yeah, it was chippy.
Yeah. And Draymond even said in the post-game interview that it was the most physical he'd ever seen Karl-Anthony Towns play.
Wow.
And that he kind of enjoyed the back and forth.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it seems like this rivalry is bringing out like a different side of both of them.
Almost like they're feeding off of it.
Yeah.
And even beyond like just the physicality, there was that moment in the second quarter where they got into it.
Oh, yeah, where Draymond called Towns soft.
Right, and that's not just trash talk.
No, that's dipper than that.
Right, it's like you're tapping into this narrative that's followed Towns
for his whole career.
Yeah. And so I'm curious to see, like, how does he respond to that long term?
Right. Does he kind of embrace it?
Does he try to change the narrative?
Does he use it as fuel?
Right. Like, what does he do?
Yeah.
So, this whole thing, it almost makes me think of Draymond's podcast as like its own reality show.
I know, right? Like every episode is a new episode of the drama.
Yeah. Like, who's he going to beef with next?
Right.
It's kind of crazy. But, this isn't just about Draymond and KTT, right?
No, it's not.
Like, we've got to talk about the teams.
Absolutely.
Like, how is all of this impacting the Warriors and the Knicks?
Well, for the Warriors, they seem to be thriving despite all the drama.
Yeah.
I mean, they're 14-1 with Jimmy Butler back in the lineup.
Oh, right.
Coach Kerr just hit a huge milestone, passing Al Attles with his 558th regular season win.
558.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's a lot of wins.
It is. And, they've got some tough games coming up against Denver and Milwaukee.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see if they can kind of maintain this momentum with all this stuff going on.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to be, playing well and winning games when everything's happy and chill.
Right.
But can you do it when there's this like dark cloud hanging over the team?
Right.
And then you look at the Knicks and they're kind of facing some adversity.
Absolutely. I mean, they really need to find that resilience.
Especially with Jalen Brunson out.
Right. He's sidelined with an injury.
Yeah. So
it's not a good time for them to have this extra distraction.
Right. But I mean, we should acknowledge like Towns played well in that game.
Oh, yeah.
Even with the loss and the drama.
Yeah. He put up 29 points and 12 rebounds.
Yeah. So that says something.
Yeah. I mean, that's a testament to his mental toughness.
Right.
His ability to compartmentalize and just focus on the game.
So I guess the question is like, is this good for them?
Is the rivalry good for them?
Is this rivalry good for them? Is it pushing them to be better?
Yeah.
Or is it just a distraction?
Right. Is it too much?
Too much noise.
Yeah, it could be, it could push them to elevate their game, like to constantly be striving for an edge.
Right.
But it could also become a destructive force.
Right.
If it starts to spill over into the locker room.
If it impacts their focus.
Right.
Yeah. So where do we go from here?
That's the $1 million question.
What should we be watching for as this unfolds?
Yeah. Well, here's something to think about.
Okay.
Will this rivalry ultimately benefit both players and their teams, pushing them to new heights of competitive excellence? Or will it become a distraction, hindering their progress and ultimately leading to their downfall?
Ooh.
Keep an eye on these two.
I will.
Because this is far from over.
Buckle up, everybody.
Yeah.
This is going to be interesting.
It's going to be a wild ride.